Puberty. Podcast.
We're preteens.
We're tweens. Oh my goodness gracious. Well, here we are back at the beautiful Minnesota Opera Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We are all together. We'll see how long that lasts.
Right. We'll see what the Panhellenic decides to do.
Y'all, it is Delta Plus. It's got extra leg room. Your first check bag is free. I don't even know what to say. But first and foremost, I do want to, because we didn't do it last week, but I want to send right at the top of the show a special shout out to Minnesota Opera Technical Director Josh Pecklow for putting all of this together, this beautiful studio that we are recording in, and these microphones and all of this business. Yes. I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what we're going to do. And he was just like, you know, you work for an opera company. We've got audio equipment. And then he and the production team came down here and made this beautiful space for us to record in. So I'm just so thankful.
Me too.
Very. I was like, oh my gosh, I just have to show up
and
record.
I just have to plug my computer in and set up a couple of little doohickeys and plug the microphones in, and we're ready to go.
No fumbling with cables, no trying to get the pop filter to stand upright. No, none of that.
But you can bring latte.
Aww, she can still have a guest spot, every once in a while.
Yeah.
Permanent co-host.
Well, I thought when she guessed it was beautiful. She had wonderful things to say.
I did too. My partner was thrilled to hear that she had her moment in the spotlight and just said something so profound.
Yes, well, at some point, Delilah, my cat, needs to come and just sort of lay across things and glare at us.
I know she has opinions.
Yes. Oh my God, if she could talk, I can only imagine. But
it's not really what you want. I am so convinced if our pets could talk, it's just not a good thing.
Because she yells at me a lot. And I just
you out.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just constantly like a roommate that hates me, but also doesn't. Sometimes she's sweet. She comes and gets on my lap. But most of the time she's just upset. I say to her all the time, she's standing by the door wanting to go out. And I'm like, yes, I know. Everything's such a problem.
Well, if you stop patronizing her, she'd probably stop yelling at you.
Oh my God, you sound just like her. Yeah, now I'm triggered.
Well, Damien always reminds me that our cat is the oldest person in our house. Because if you're factoring in cat years, she's 11. I think maybe she's 65, 70. So she doesn't have time for the tomfoolery. And I think that's usually, enough. I'm over here trying to sleep. I know it's 2 p.m. Why is there all this talking? Why is there a TV on? Turn those lights off. This is where we are now. She was lovely as a kitten, though.
Oh, yeah. Delilah as a kitten, not so much. She's come down a lot. But, she was a wild one.
I'll bet. Well, considering we all very well may be at home again soon, our animals will have their time again. So.
Yeah, and I think that is, perhaps a little silver lining.
Oh,
Because she's been just beside herself in the mornings when I've been leaving. So.
I think mine has finally gotten used to it. So,
Aw.
like, but I'm sure she'll be happy to see me back, which is what I was sure was going to happen when I saw the crowds at Lollapalooza.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That was so insane.
So, like, also, like, picture this. We're in Minnesota. We're in Minneapolis. That's in Chicago.
Right.
I'm thinking of, like, how many, like, young people traveled there
Mm-hmm.
6
for
hour drive.
Lollapalooza.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind that there is that rally in Sturgis that happens every year
And
that's going to come. And I remember,
we saw
Pepperidge
what
Farm
happened
remembers last year what happened after the Sturgis rally.
Oh.
So we're just like this little garbage sandwich right here between the two.
Oh.
It's literally like people have
Okay.
forgotten that we are still in the middle of a pandemic. We never got to it didn't actually ever end.
And I saw an article that was just like, we're in for like basically like we're in for an epic concert season, or one of the most like epic or, you know, biggest season of tours and concerts ever. And I'm like, are we though?
Why?
That's
Or-
what I want to know.
Are y'all gonna
but
plan it then shut
why?
it down, or
Right.
are y'all planning the biggest super spreaders ever?
I think that
You know, I was reading something, I think it was yesterday, and they were saying that, like, not only is it sort of coupled with, like, you know, you've got the COVID deniers over here who are just like, you know, it's a hoax, it's a scam, I'm not going to get the vaccine because, like, it has side effects and Bill Gates is putting microchips in my brain. But then you have all the rest of us over here, and, like, there are, you know, a lot of us who are, like, sitting here and going, like, you know, obviously freaking out for good reason, but then, like, and I feel like I kind of like fall into this category too, where like I'm kind of like in a little bit of denial too, because like it's hard to think about like all of the lockdowns, all of the death, all of just the sitting in your home by yourself, like anxious that you're gonna die from this airborne disease that's going around outside, and then finally, like in just record-breaking time, we got these vaccines, and it was gonna be like cool, we're all done, we all got this life-saving vaccine, we're all good. Great, take your masks off. And now it's like, because like of these crazy people over here, like we have to go through it all again. Like, no, I'm having my wedding reception. I'm taking my trip. Like, I can't, no. And of course, if like, you know, we have to go back into lockdown, we'll deal. But like, it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting.
I'm more frustrated with just like just overall systemic failure in every regard that this has been, from like the not mitigating the spread in the first place, the confusing communication, the not doing enough to communicate with marginalized communities or people who just have questions in general about this vaccine that seem to have popped up out of nowhere, the misinformation, even though we know now it did not pop up out of nowhere, but still, like, people like not having the contact tracing that other countries had. When I heard what happened, like what other countries had when you travel there, that there's like on-site like rapid testing, there's contact tracing that you just download onto an app on your phone. Somebody from their health board calls you like every day for the first 7 days that you're there to check. And I was like, we didn't do no such thing. No such thing.
And the idea that now we're going to take an opportunity to do what we should have done last time. Here's my plan, and y'all can tell me if I'm completely barking up the wrong tree. I would love it if immediately after your reception, we could go into like a 16-week, everybody shut down, everything, once and for all. And then all of a sudden we get to Halloween, and then maybe it's, like, maybe we dealt with it,
maybe
right?
we can trick or treat.
Right. Maybe we can see our families at Thanksgiving. I have not gone home for Christmas for 2 years now. And, like, you know, maybe that's not a thing to a lot of people, but that is a thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it. And it would be nice if the people who don't want to cooperate with getting a vaccine, okay, fine, I hear you, and I'm sure there are lots of reasons for not doing it. Why don't you not get a vaccine and then stay at home? And then you just keep staying there. And then let the rest of us get our herd immunity together. And then maybe we figure out what's happening on the other side of that. But I think this kind of idea that you don't have to get a vaccine, you don't have to wear a mask, and you can still be outside screaming and hollering at people at Walmart.
That's what I don't understand.
I don't either. I have a friend who has elected not to get the vaccine for a range of reasons. And she's also elected along with that, I'm not leaving my house. And I feel like the two things go together in my head, right? And, and I'm like, okay, I'm with you. Like, I get you don't want to get it, but I also get you don't want to get the disease, so then you're going to stay home. I don't understand this idea that I'm not getting it. I'm not doing anything preventative. And I want to fight against people who do. Like, I want my governor... What state is it? It's got to be Florida or Texas, right? That's talking about, like, you can report people who you think are migrants from Latin America if you see them in a car and you think they have COVID. I actually read this.
Texas was Governor Abbott.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Right.
If you see someone who you think is
if you see a
migrant,
if you see a brown person in a car,
right.
And you think they also think they have COVID.
Because you can see this
just
from a car.
looking at them.
Right.
Maybe they
in their car.
Maybe they cleared their throat or they sneezed.
So basically, if you see a brown person cough in their car, you can call.
Right.
Yeah.
Because this is allowed for the perfect storm of ignorance and more ignorance. Like, this is just what we're doing in 2021, y'all.
And it just, a long time ago, I was talking with my mom. And she was like, it's like watching a zombie movie and, like, seeing, like, people, like, clamoring, like, trying to break into government offices saying, let the zombies bite us. I demand to be bitten by the zombies. Right. And it's just like, okay, so now we know what would happen in a zombie apocalypse. Like, I mean,
absolutely. We're in the middle of it.
I mean, we're in the middle of it. But, like, I mean, this just, you know, and I think we all know the answer to your question, why this is, you know, why, who exactly it is believes that they don't have to take the vaccine or wear a mask, but also don't have to take any precautionary measures, like, whatsoever. You know, and it's like I said last week, white supremacy will kill us all. And it's just, to me, just the idea that, like, just the mutations aren't enough. Like, we're watching it happen in real time. This virus is mutating.
A whole Pan-Hellenic Council of viruses are marching through this country right now.
I've pretty much just accepted that, like, this is going to be a way of life for a minute. Wearing masks in public, carrying... I mean, I carried hand sanitizer on me at all times in the first place. Right. But, like, for real now? Like, for real, like, not playing, like, every time you're in and out of a place. Like, the being careful about who you're gathering around. Like, I had a feeling from the beginning. I didn't want to be right, though. But just watching how things were unfolding and how things were being handled, and especially the refusal to just have everyone stay home and pay them to stay home. That we could not do that basic thing. I was like, oh, okay. Like, white supremacy and capitalism just going to take us all down. It's just going... COVID might be the thing to undo them.
Right.
Because, like, I don't know what... you can't... It's a global pandemic. Like, it is a global pandemic. Like, a real one. So,
Like
it could take us all out or create like it's creating long-term disabilities for a lot of people, people who will not be able to work, people who will not be able to return back to what they want us all to return to.
Long haul COVID is on the same wave as dementia and Alzheimer's.
To say nothing
You don't
of social
want COVID.
anxiety.
You do not want COVID. Like,
I mean, so just so y'all out there in the world know, we are currently hiring for a couple of positions in our department. If anybody's listening to this podcast, it's just like, I want my piece of that. But one of the things that has shifted is I have to ask people about COVID in interviews and just like, what is your general disposition to being around people right now? You know, and that's not a thing that I thought that we would be asking, but you do have to ask, and the answers are not uniformly like, I am happy to be sitting in an office somewhere. Nor should they be, right? So it's, I mean, the number of things that it shifted. I feel like part of my adjustment to Minneapolis has been sort of like stymied by the fact that Damien and I are still like a little traumatized, and like the idea of meeting a bunch of people we don't know is like,
and that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. We, met up with some friends this past Saturday that we hadn't seen in 2 years, to go have dinner, and we were sitting inside, and I was trying to be like cool, and we were 6 feet away from the other tables, and but like the waitress like comes over and she's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm just like, "Hi, what's up? I have the rigatoni. Please get out of my face and bring me the rigatoni. This isn't about you. I'm sure you're really nice and vaccinated."
I had a moment in going to get lunch yesterday. I was going to go to Sweet Green and get myself, $15 salad or whatever.
I love Sweet Green.
I love it. I hate it, but I love it. But it was like lunch rush kind of, and I just had a moment freaking out because I'm standing there in line and I'm like, I might be there may be like one other person here wearing a mask. There's so many people in here for lunch. And I was just like, I don't want it anymore. I walked out the door. So you didn't get the Sweet Green? No, I did not. I went to somewhere that had a lot less people, that had a closed kitchen situation in the back. And I sat and ate my lunch outside where there was only like 2 other people more than 6 feet away from me. So
we're just living in a new world. I started working with a trainer last week, and I'm trying to get snatched for the winter, I guess. It's the opposite time of year.
Yes.
But
you can't see it, but under this bubble coat,
snatched in the snowsuit.
Exactly. But the only way I was going to feel comfortable with it is if I did an online trainer, because I knew I did not want to be in the gym first of all, I knew I didn't want to be in the gym, but I also didn't want to be in the gym with people I didn't know, where somebody's having to like move your arms and legs to get you in the right form. And I've been super happy. Shout to Nathan Horowitz and David Wang. Y'all have been lovely. Nathan is a stunt man and a trainer for the American Ninja Warrior. So I'm like, I don't need the full service. You can start me all the way down here.
I'm trying to go up the salmon ladder. Give me that information.
I do feel like I've been dropped out of a plane at 40,000 feet with no parachute. My 40-year-old body is feeling every inch of it. But if it hadn't been for the pandemic, I think I would have just been like, go to the gym and send me whoever works here kind of a thing. But I'm glad that I chose the folks I did, because they are actually really lovely about also working in the reality we live in right now, right? There's no pretense that we're living in a different kind of a universe. And they were even like, are you in a place where you need like a home workout because you're not going to the gym? And I'm like, not this week. We'll check in next month because it may very well be where we are. But yeah, it's everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, when we first came back to the Opera Center, you know, I've been working out at home for the past, 6 or 7 months. And I was like, oh, well, if things are, opening up and getting back to normal, maybe like I'll find a gym around here. And I went to one nearby and like they gave me a guest pass and I was going around and I was on the treadmill. And then about like halfway through my working out, I was like, what am I doing? I'm seeing like all just like these random sweaty people without masks on, like touching things. And like, you've got like the spray or whatever that you like wipe things down. But it was just like, no. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to wait until this whole thing is just over before I, am around just like sweaty, spitty, screaming people lifting heavy things.
Not ready for that yet.
Not ready for that, no. But I do want Nathan Horowitz.
Nathan Horowitz and David Wang at davidwangfitness.com.
Okay, well, free plug.
Absolutely. And I think if I refer people, I might get something. And if I don't, I will recommend that they give me something for referring people.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take a look at that.
There should be something in it for you. Yeah.
There should be.
There should be.
Well, one thing that I want to say, and I hope I speak for all three of us. But I just want to say something to all the Black people out there who are listening to this show. I understand the hesitation, but please go get vaccinated. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Please go get vaccinated. Yeah. I know. I get it. I really do. Yeah. Medical racism is a thing, and it has been forever.
Yeah.
But this is no joke. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We need to keep ourselves and each other safe. Please run, don't walk. Yeah. And get that shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go get it. And remember that even though I know like some people have been put off also because of just like the financial aspects of the medical industry as well, like just because they ask for insurance don't mean you have to pay. Right. Like, people get caught up by that. Just go get it. Go get it. It's available. I know. The struggle, trust me.
We know.
I went through it. I was hesitant. Yes, I was not exactly running, nor was I excited. But I'm glad, very glad that I did get vaccinated. So, yeah.
Okay, let's breathe. Let's breathe. Thank you for bearing with us as we got all of that out of our system. Oh my gosh, just being alive in 2021 is just
strange.
Isn't it insane? This dimension is just, I don't have words.
I ask myself a lot, like in a lot of people believe that, like, you choose to be born at a certain time, and that, like, it's kind of a conscious, like, you in the spirit world, and you're like, oh, I'll come down. I ask a lot, like, why did I look at what was happening and what might happen and be like, yeah, I want to, like,
are we just all of us are just like the type of people like, oh, I like a challenge?
Maybe.
Clearly.
Did I make a bargain with like the rest of my ancestral lineage and they talked me into it? They were like, all right, if you go down there, we gonna like set you up real good and we make sure you're wealthy in the end. Is that what it's going like? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why I agreed. I'm trying to.
I think somebody just made me mad. And I'm like, I'm done up here and I'm going down there. And I didn't know what I was getting into. So that's the only thing that makes sense.
I mean, I guess perhaps I looked at the ancestors and was like, well, I mean, I guess they had it like, they did have it worse.
Okay, well, okay, yeah. Okay.
So they probably looked at me and they were like, "Oh, okay. So you, the little pandemic. Oh, okay.
Are you complaining?
Yep.
Are you? Let me tell you something about hardship. Like,
Oh no, you had to stay in your house for 2 weeks and play jigsaw puzzles. Oh no. Oh my god. Boo-hoo. And I'm like down here like, but Donald Trump. That was really bad.
In fairness, I feel like they would agree with that.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
Trump is
yeah.
pretty terrible.
I mean,
but then they're also like, but Christopher Columbus. Like, boo-hoo, girl.
oh goodness gracious. So maybe we're the ones who are like, let's just take it easy. That doesn't feel right either.
I'm gonna wait till y'all work this out, and I'm gonna go down in 1980.
Right. If y'all get us through 1700 and 1800, I'll pick up around 1993. Sound cool? And I was...
Well, at least you miss Reagan, because
Yeah.
that was a trip too.
That was wild. That was wild. But you did get George W. Bush.
Did I? Oh,
You
yeah.
sure did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Starting from when I was just a young little tyke. Watching the news in 3rd grade was...
That was a trip.
That was a trip.
That was a trip.
Yeah.
That was a trip.
Well, I'm living in New York. But we don't need to go into all that. But speaking of New York, there's joyous news.
Oh yes.
Let's talk about something happy.
Yes, let's do it.
Yes.
Please.
Let's do it.
So we have amazing news. People of color doing big things in our industry once again. And we just want to shout out Shanta Thake,
Yay!
who is the new chief artistic officer at Lincoln Center. And it's just an amazing, beautiful thing, doing big things. She was at the Public Theater, I believe, before that.
Yep.
And just out here just doing it for the culture. And so I'm just
It's so exciting.
so excited.
Such
for
a
her.
good move. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. She was at Joe's Pub, but that's part of
Yeah,
Public
it's part of
Theater.
Part of
Public,
Public,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's super exciting, and we have a close working relationship here in the Impact Department with someone who very soon will be on staff with Miss Thake, and she has spoken of her in such glowing terms. So I'm super excited for Lincoln Center. I'm excited for the whole field in terms of what this means. And this has been like a lovely span of a couple of weeks of good news about women of color assuming these roles at companies. And, you know, I'd like to think it bodes well for the future, you know?
I certainly hope so.
I hope so too, right?
I certainly hope so. Because, I mean, in her new position, I mean, she's going to have just so much access to just the vast resources and real estate of Lincoln Center, the concert halls and the opera stages and the plaza and the recital rooms and the reflecting pool and just like this, like the whole city is just kind of like, you know, Lincoln Center's playground. And, you know, I remember, you know, living in New York and going down there and just the majesty of it. You just step onto that campus and you're just like, ooh, holy shnikes. All right.
I have never visited, but does it like inspire the same vibe as like a Kennedy Center, like in DC?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I imagine.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. It's a sort of architectural marvel, and you also know like the kind and caliber of art that's happening there.
Right.
And it's exciting because there are a couple of, at least 2 schools on campus, right? SAB and Juilliard. And you see the kids walking around and you're like, this is the future of so many disciplines. And it's exciting when you're like sort of paralleling that with Lincoln Center's construction and all the people of color who are uprooted to put Lincoln Center there. And now you have this woman of color who is going to assume this role. And I feel like it's an important phase in its development in terms of right-siding some of that. So I'm excited. I'm excited to go back and visit New York 20 years from now when there's no more COVID and seeing like the really incredible work that they will be doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And mistake if the fancy ever strikes you and you're free on a Wednesday afternoon, we'd love to chat with you about all your awesome plans.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I'm thirsty for those plans.
I'm excited about this because I feel like, I mean, even though not visiting the Lincoln Center in person, like I've heard of it or know of it, or like everyone who has not been there in person knows because of, like you said, the caliber of art that like we see coming out of there and all of that. And like I think about what it means when like large institutions like that have someone at the helm who understands like the tone they set for the culture, or the tone they set in terms of like this is what is legitimate or this is what's valid or not. Like I think about the Kennedy Center and how they have like a whole, is it like hip hop laureate or something like that, but there's a whole like there's a few positions that are focused on like hip hop specifically and that culture and what programming happens at the Kennedy Center related to hip hop. And I mean, I don't know if the two are tied, but I do see like a period of a lot more people giving hip hop like the serious scholarship that it deserves, like on a bigger platform, not just people like within academia having trouble getting their work supported, I'm sure. Like, but like actual like evolution of hip hop series that's on Netflix that is so good. So like, that matters. So I'm excited to see what she does.
Yeah, because I mean, to be in that job, you just sort of have to be a master of just so many different disciplines. But I just see this as an opportunity to bring even more disciplines into that space, and that's just so exciting. Just like you're saying, Paige. It's just I can't wait to see what they're gonna do, because I've never actually been to Juilliard or anything like that. The perhaps was a dream of mine once upon a time. I think the closest I got was the Tower Records that used to be on 66 and Broadway. But it's still, in your imagination, it holds that, incredible mythic sort of quality, like, Julia Stiles and Save the Last Dance. Julia just occupies that, and the Med and SAB and all of these institutions, and so to have just a little bit more flavor, perhaps. Just a little seasoning, a little sazon. Up in there, it's just amazing. So congratulations, Shanta Thake. We're rooting for you. And yes, come on the podcast if you feel like it.
Yeah.
Anytime. We have literally an open chair. Well, I don't know if you guys heard, but apparently classical music is under racial attack.
Oh, is it?
Oh, dear.
I know. And it's all George Floyd's fault.
Oh, dear. Oh, God.
We'll be right back with this week's read. We'll be right back. And we are back.
Hooray.
We back. How was your break?
It's lovely.
Oh, good. Oh my gosh, you guys. Did you know classical music is under assault? all these black
by
people.
us?
Us.
By who?
We're
Why?
attacking classical music.
Sounds like something we do.
Well, perhaps. But obviously I am joking. But you know who is not joking is Miss, what's her name? Heather McDonald.
Yeah.
She was not joking at all.
Miss
Quite
Heather.
serious,
Miss
apparently.
Heather is very upset. She wrote an article for Manhattan Institute's City Journal.
Right. Hopefully none of you have ever heard of that.
No. But it is entitled, I believe, Classical Music's Suicide Pact Part 1. So I guess Part 2 is upcoming. And, well, I'll just give you a little flavor of the opening. I'll use my Christina voice. Inside joke, sorry. Classical music is under racial attack. Orchestras and opera companies are said to discriminate against lowercase black musicians and composers. The canonical repertoire, the product of a centuries-long tradition of musical expression, is allegedly a function of white supremacy. Not one leader in the field has defended Western art music against these charges. And I'm just going to stop you
Not
right
one.
there. Not one leader in the field has defended Western art music against these charges. So here comes Heather.
Right.
And basically she continues, long story short, please, I've given this article probably much more than it is due. Feel free to just take our word for it. Don't give this any more page views.
No reason to read this.
A quick cursory Google search.
No reason
of
to
this
take the
person.
views from 3 to 10. No reason.
I had never heard of this person. I know you had, Lee.
Oh, yeah.
But just a cursory Google search, just, she was on Tucker Carlson last night.
In a friendly interview.
Yes.
Oh, wait, for real?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Or maybe it was 2 days ago, but it was very recent. She has written screeds for the same publication about homelessness, police brutality,
That was the
police
one I read
violence,
before.
just all sorts of things where black people are at fault and will be forever and ever and ever. And so apparently that extends to classical music and to EDI efforts here and throughout the country. Attempts to diversify staff and audiences
And repertoire.
artists who are on our stages and behind our stages and the designers. Apparently, all that is ruining things.
Not trying to hear
There is no racism. White supremacy is in scare quotes throughout. This idea that, classical music institutions, opera institutions are perpetuating systems of inequity and are oppressing people of color is just wrong.
Yeah.
It's just everything was fine after the 60s. You got your little Civil Rights Act. You got your little Voting Rights Act. Why are you upset? At the same time, there is no racism, and we should all just sort of shut up and just sort of uncritically listen to our Mozart and our Beethoven and just enjoy it. But at the same time, also all of the scary black people have their feet on the neck of these institutions and all of this power thanks to the murder of George Floyd, and we are using it to destroy the canon. So what do y'all think about that?
Reading this was one of the times I was so happy to have gone to Columbia, where the point of that exercise was learning backwards and forwards the entire Western canon, art, music, and literature, because it puts me in a situation where somebody else cannot tell me what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And reading this incredibly sophistic article that was based on mountains of illogic and false information and completely unreasonable assumptions, I was able to go from start to finish and see that she had no point.
Like none.
No
Like
evidence.
none.
Nothing.
It's amazing. Like the whole time I'm reading it and I'm thinking like, so what is your point?
Right. So surely the point will be in the
What
next
are you
paragraph.
trying
Surely.
Surely.
What are you trying to say other than like, I am tired of listening to black people talk?
I think that might have.
That seemed to
I think that is the
been
point.
the
point.
So sorry, enjoy the podcast. You got another hour of this.
I for real, like, I'm just like scrolling through again, and I'm just like, nope, that's another complaint. That's another. That's a complaint. That's another sarcastic quote. There's another complaint about people of color getting all the attention. Wow, okay. There's just, yep, and it's still going. I haven't found the point yet. I haven't. Nope. Just more complaint. Yeah. Nope, that's not the point either. I'm still going. It's literally still this might be the point at the very end of several paragraphs, several minutes of my life.
Yeah, that I will not get back.
No.
It's quite a lengthy, 8,000-10,000 word.
I mean, and there's a part 2 coming up.
That is part 1.
Right. And if we keep it up, we might be in part 2. So
It would be my honor.
I mean, the thing that actually really killed me is that she complained about the subjectivity of the entire move to sort of, dismantle the canon with more subjectivity. Like, that was the thing that was so strange to me, because I'm like, so your readership is also just disgruntled, because they don't need you to make a point either. Like, you just get to say, I do not like the fact that anybody anywhere may choose to sort of put on exactly the same sort of pedestal Esperanza Spalding and Mozart and Beethoven. You just don't like that. And
Right.
that's what a large part of this is about. It feels like this discomfort with losing a foothold that nobody has a right to, right? We're all Americans in this room. Our music, our artistic expression, and these institutions that carry the names of places like Minnesota Opera are here to represent all of us, right? So we can have a reasonable expectation that people with my background or who with your background or any of our backgrounds should be equally represented at an organization like this, right? That's what she's against. I couldn't get anything else. I really thought she was going to get into music theory or something at some point where there might even be the kernel of logic, even if it was something I disagreed with, right? She didn't even have that.
No.
It was just the point of y'all want to be here too, and you're vocal about the instances in which you were mistreated. And you have no right to be here. You have no right to be vocal. You have no right to feel that you deserve some kind of representation, because that makes me uncomfortable. And she also doesn't even identify herself as a musician, a music lover, a composer, none of those things. She is a person who is just unhappy with the idea that America has to live up to its own values. And that gets under my skin. My black skin. It really gets under there. Because I pay the same taxes that everybody else does, and I have just as much right to be here, just as much right to express my opinion, and just as much right to expect to see my life represented in the art that these grand institutions are holding up. And when they don't do it, I have just as much right to complain about it. I am very confused about anybody else thinking something different. And if you do think that, I encourage you to read anything. Just read a book and be disabused of that. It's very upsetting.
Yeah, I was especially. I don't know if I want to scream or laugh or fight when I read the paragraph about oh, there's no more, music programs in schools have declined, and saying that, and which is, yes, true, and
Absolutely.
schools are extremely underfunded in all aspects, and especially the arts. Arts is one of the first things to go. And then in the same paragraph wanted to be like, Black parents aren't putting their kids in music programs as much as other races are. But you just said that there's no music programs in the school. What music program is there for them to put their kids in, lady?
Exactly.
Where is it?
Exactly.
Where is it? The one that doesn't cost also like thousands of dollars. Also, if you would look at the, socio-political context of, these school closings or underfunding of the arts and just where it's happening to what racial demographics, you would like it's everything in here is so half-baked. Like, I can't even
Absolutely.
But it doesn't even matter, apparently, if you are able to put your Black child. And also, this is just about Black people.
Yeah.
She gives a couple of sops to the Asian community, but like this is about like Black people complaining about stuff. Right. But like even if you are able to put your child in that like $5,000 a week violin program or whatever, and they get into Juilliard, then they will not be up to snuff because like they are Black and they were in this Black program, and it's just not as rigorous.
I mean
clearly,
right. Right. And then she's also like the other thing that like really got me was the fact that she didn't even like or seem that there was space for people to have critiques of things that they themselves have experienced. I had extraordinarily traditional training in Western music. That was a part of my background. I am not a person who runs from that, but I am a person who has a critique of when it served me and when it did not. And she's creating a situation where you can't even like have that conversation, right? And she brings up the point about, orchestra's blind auditions, right? As if that somehow is evidence that there is no racism without sort of digging into the fact that before you can even show up for a blind audition, so many things have had to go right for you in your career as a musician. Yeah. And if you are a person of color, not just a Black person, generally a person of color, but also a working class person, a person with a disability, any number of other groups, you are probably never going to be in a situation where you are even going to make it to that place. And she is disturbed that people are problematizing that. And what she tries to do is equate merit with the sort of coincidental ways that people land there. And that is also very bothersome.
Oh, do you mean the sentence, but colorblindness is now regarded as discriminatory since it favors merit over race?
That is exactly the point. I think that was when I closed my laptop for a few minutes and then got so mad I came back and finished the article.
Like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I think all of us saw the panel discussion from LA Opera in the pandemic, and it was 6 Black opera artists talking about their experiences, their lived experiences as Black people in this industry. And she makes reference to that, to a story that Russell Thomas told about being rebuked for showing up late and being on his phone during rehearsals and being sort of punished for that. And feeling as though he was being singled out.
When he had an emergency.
But he had an emergency. He had a family member that passed away. So yeah, of course he's going to be late. Of course he's going to... Like, we need... It's just humane to just sort of make allowances for it. But he wasn't getting that. Yeah. And... yeah, there was one big difference between him and the rest of the rest of the cast members. But she chooses in this article to sort of say, well, I mean, but he was late and talking on his phone. I mean, I guess his family member died.
That's really how she said it.
That's really how she says it.
Also, how is it even relevant to the discussion that we're
like at all
having?
Like this is this man's lived experience.
It seems like your argument is largely about like repertoire or training, or it's all over the place, honestly.
Yeah.
But then she talks about another singer who talks about like, you know, she has an international career but has only sang in one A house here in America. And then she's like, well, what about this one person and this one other person? And what about Lawrence Brownlee? What about them?
You named like 5 people, girl. Like...
I mean, that's a wonderful accomplishment for those people, but like, if the exception proves the rule.
Exactly. And divorcing it from the fact that there are generations of Black opera singers who had significant careers overseas who were not being hired here. Like, that is a part of the context.
There are so many you've never heard of.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's actually
go back to our
incredible.
Black History Month on Instagram this past Friday.
Yeah.
I think it's archived. You can learn about some of them.
Yes, you have. And if you want to learn about more, just shoot us an email. We will be happy to edify you. As a matter of fact, I think it's probably a great idea for her to do just a hair more research before she dabbles in part 2. Because I think I actually have a very healthy respect for debate. And if she were coming to this with a whole bunch of facts behind it, it actually would have been really energizing for me to read something and then have to think about where we are and be in a place where I feel like, okay, this is complicating some of how I think about stuff. Let me get smarter. Let me get better at my job. But instead, it's just like 10,000 words of complaint and confusion. And I am very confused as to what is going on with all the people who responded in the comments, who are I guess are just mad themselves, equally disgruntled. I mean, the comments were just outright nasty. I know you're like, don't read the comments, but I had to. And they were just completely ridiculous. You know, like, what is it about our getting to be in certain spaces that makes people so uncomfortable? Like, I've wondered that my whole life, and I frequently have answers, but like I would actually like to have that kind of a conversation with someone. This is not an invitation to the podcast, Miss McDonald, but like I would love to actually hear somebody articulate, what is this about, you know?
Honestly, the whole article like reads like a lot of what I have seen, heard, received, especially from white women. There's like a particular type of vitriol, like, and I think one day recently, like, I just had a moment. It was, you know, some microaggression that had happened on the street when I was walking on my way to work, and I don't know if it was just something my mom said to me or something my grandma said to me, but that, like, I remembered that came to me. It was just like, you have to remember that a lot of the time when they act like this, it is actually from a place of deep jealousy and envy and like not knowing how to handle someone else who does not look like what they were told is the epitome, the standard, the thing to be all their life. When someone who doesn't look like that gets the spotlight, they cannot handle it. Like, and it's just that simple. Like, it reads like, to me, it just read like, well, why are they getting this attention? Why are they getting this attention? Why are there all these Black young artists program? How come so-and-so gets to headline the season? How come so-and-so gets to be the resident artist? How come so-and-so gets to be the principal in all their shows? Like, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like that deep sense of jealousy that I have experienced anytime there is some sort of success or shine that Black people, especially Black women or Black people of marginalized genders, are getting. Yeah, I read it and I was like, I know this very well.
I mean, C note. Her name is escaping me right now. The woman who won silver in shot put.
Oh.
Who did the gesture that on the
Raven Saunders?
Thank
I
you.
have
Thank
such
you.
a crush.
Raven,
Raven Saunders, if you hear this,
Get that Opus T, girl.
Please come sit right next to me.
But to your point, I really do feel like it is that, right? This difference in comfort with our own being, right? Our own expression. I have long been a person who is very comfortable in my own difference, and I know that used to bug people growing up, right? And I guess I got older and assumed that some of this evaporated, like in the workplace and in the reality, but maybe it doesn't. I guess what changed is I stopped caring enough to ask people why they were bothered. But here we are, right?
Well, and it also just makes me a little bit sad. I don't know. Maybe I should be this empathetic, but like what you just said, Paige, reminds me of like that James Baldwin quote that's like, they hold on to so much hate because if they were to let it go, then they'd actually have to deal with the pain that's underneath it. And I'm just like, wow, this reads to me as somebody who's just in a lot of pain.
Oh, clearly. Clearly.
And is just sort of taking it out on people that just have nothing to do with anything.
No. And interestingly enough, the people whose names she's elected to drop are so like extraordinarily successful in their respective fields. It's also like they could never be bothered in the first place. So like, why are you here? A
lot of people that one would say are people that most folks would say are indisputably talented.
Oh, absolutely.
And deserve to be where they are.
And all of the people that she cites that, supposedly are on her side are somebody who didn't want to be named. An unnamed source.
Right.
Like...
Right. That was also very interesting.
Okay, so was that Heather Backdonald? Mether Hackdonald? Was that who agreed with you?
It was the Esperanza Spalding that almost made me put it down. Because I was like, she like got a whole Grammy. Like I remember when Esperanza got her Grammy. Very well deserved. And I remember so many people like, who is she? What? Like, and her just kind of taking the world like by storm after that. So I don't know what she's talking about, because she must have missed the part where we were all fawning over Esperanza Spalding and how that album is amazing. But okay, girl. Anyway.
Well, y'all, I have an idea.
Yes.
So apparently, since Miss Heather does not like all of these new diversity, equity, inclusion, access, justice programs that have sprung up at classical institutions around the country, and I am the director of equity, diversity, and inclusion here at Minnesota Opera. And all of us are in the impact department, working on some of these very, what we consider to be here at Minnesota Opera, incredibly important issues facing our industry and our community and our world. Why don't we do our jobs for a second?
Yeah.
And maybe just school Miss Heather and some of those people in the comments, just about perhaps just a little bit of history about art's role in colonial takeovers. Perhaps a little bit about the anti-colonial orchestra movement.
I would like to start with personally like some basic geography.
Please.
Just that, like, when we look at the size of Europe as a continent, actually, some would say it's even puzzling that it's counted as a continent. Fun fact. I'm not going to go there. I'm not a cartographer. I'm not going to go there. But or you look at the rest of the world, there's just obviously a whole lot more people, a whole lot of other land masses, a whole lot of other cultures, a whole lot of other really, really old music that I'm sure the people in those areas consider to be their classical music.
Absolutely.
So I think we can just start there. Before even any colonialism, there's only just like classical music from all over the world. Even though they may not have called it classical in English, the language English, but to me, starting at that basic fact is just like, how are we even here?
Well, I mean, I feel like that's the fact that everybody's always struggling with, right? Like, nobody actually wants to sit with, this isn't any kind of objective expression of what is good, what came first, what is important. This was all just dictated and called that as an effort to reify strata between countries, right? And this is how we get into a lot of this, not to mention how particular bits of music were used for nationalistic purposes, right? And I think that is part of what we just want to talk about, right? Nobody's even out here, at least not like at an opera company, right? Like, nobody is sitting here being like, let's never again play anything in a language that originated in Europe. Like, that is not the exercise. A lot of what we're doing is just wanting to have conversations that unpack the histories, and then either going to make an effort to remedy some of that or make more space, right? And I think the idea that we're not supposed to even be doing that, to me, is very similar to how a lot of this music was used in the first place, right? Used to silence people, used to make people feel small, used to make people feel like their cultures have no contribution to the world's culture. That's what's really burning me up about this. Sorry, I'm still in my feelings. I'm trying quickly to get out of them and back into the podcast. But I feel like it's exercises like this that make our jobs so much more complicated. Because how do you then turn around and say to especially young people of color, young queer people, this is a place for all of us. We all can be a part of this. When you have other people writing stuff like this and positioning themselves in places of authority as if they know more than others, right? And I think, we should take a few minutes to name some of the organizations too that are doing very good work in the opposite direction, right? Like, I'm thinking of like Castle of Our Skins, an orchestra that is predominantly people of color, right? That really is looking to push some of this out of the way. We have Gateways, which we will say a few things about. The Color of Music Festival, and Dream Unfinished, an orchestra that I am very excited to continue to be working with, that are actually very much in favor of shifting these conversations and are working actively to do that.
And
right?
Sphinx Virtuosi.
And Sphinx, absolutely. I think Sphinx has done like a yeoman's task of really pushing the conversation forward and putting a lot of people into the pipeline, both as players and administrators, who are going to be empowered to do very different kinds of things with organizations in the future. Lots of future Shanta Thakes, right? And I think that like that is the kind of work that I am very invested in. And I also want to put out there really quickly, especially for the Heather MacDonalds of the world, that all of Minnesota Opera's education offerings are free. Specifically because, because we do want everybody to have access to quality musical education, because we do recognize that talent is evenly distributed, even if the opportunity is not.
That's a word.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm less mad.
But I do want to go back to
let's go all the way back.
A little bit of the history, because part of this conversation, just the light bulb went off in my head because I was thinking about something, and I've been thinking about it for the last 2 weeks, that Rebecca Blackwell said on our last episode.
Professor Blackwell.
Yes, Professor Blackwell. But she was talking about Verdi and saying that, like, we're not supposed to inject race or politics into these pieces when Verdi wrote a piece about race for political purposes. And so, Lee, you mentioned, earlier about, these pieces being used for nationalistic purposes and, to keep people excluded and to make them feel small, to put down these sort of rebellions. And so I was just wondering, if you could give the audience just a little bit more about that, because I bet a lot of people don't realize that.
Right. So various composers who had sort of state level jobs, right, took it upon themselves to create pieces that were meant to invite people into the culture, right? So if you're thinking about some of these particular moments with like Italy and Germany in particular, when they were codifying what the nation was, who was included as part of it, and what their national culture would be and what it would not be, right? Specifically, who was on the outside. Certain pieces were written specifically to sort of delineate who was German, what was Italian, right? And what was not. And then subsequently these pieces were used by the state to reinforce these ideas over and over again. I think we are very familiar with these conversations with Wagner, but this is not the only instance of it, right? And I think there are lots of works that we consider canonical that were either written specifically for these purposes or were immediately used in these ways that were fundamentally about excluding groups of people. They weren't always just people of color, right? Like in plenty of these instances, they were other groups of people in Europe, Jews, Roma, like various kinds of folks who were meant to be put outside of a culture, and using music, using visual art, certainly using literature to reaffirm a lot of these things is a fundamental part of understanding what the music is, what its function is, why it sounds and looks the way that it does, right? And then I think if you're sort of extending that to where we have used the term classical, as you were pointing out, Paige, which is a word that just has a basic meaning, and then there's the way that it's been applied, right? And specifically excluding people from the Americas, excluding people from Africa, excluding people from Asia, excluding indigenous folks from Australia. Like, that's also a part of the story. And we shouldn't be running from it. We need to sit and face it, right? We have to have these conversations. We have to talk about what this means. And if in some instances that means that we are taking a step back from pieces for a period of time because we are now uncomfortable with what they represent, that's a part of a cultural conversation that we should be having. You know, we do not live in a monolithic society.
Absolutely. Does it hold up? No, I think that's the question. Like, and for whatever reason, it's like we go back to like movies from the 90s, and we're like, does this hold up? Does Titanic hold up? Or like whatever. Why wouldn't we do that for Wagner or Mozart or like any why are these the pieces that are in these like behind museum cases that we're not allowed to touch?
Well, part of what that is too, I think, is these histories also really sort of contour who thinks they get to have a place in the conversation, right? And I feel like the reason that more people of color aren't going through colleges and majoring in musicology or art history is because you see what's in museums, you see what orchestras are playing, you see what opera companies are programming, and then it feels like they're actually, no one's interested in there being a conversation that I am a part of, right? And then you take the additional piece where it feels like those sort of overtures are only made to the rest of us in like February, September, October, and May. Then you really are left with a thing that's like a cycle that's perpetuating itself, right? We are perpetually being kept on the outside, so more of us are not interested in getting to the inside, and then therefore our work is not being programmed. Instead, it's being ghettoized, right? Like if we're showing up in places, it's not at these grand institutions, it's at places that have like very specific names, like museums of this people's art, or calling something contemporary art because it's by a black or brown person, period. And
World music.
Right. Exactly, right.
Urban music.
One of being the country bumpkin I am, the whole urban moniker has always been one of the ones that I've like really struggled with, right? Like I didn't know what a city was until I was 15.
Mean?
Like, what is that?
Right.
Exactly. I will mention that part of, this discussion is inspired by an article that we looked at a while ago, entitled Anti-Colonial Orchestras, A Cultural Response to Classical Music Imperialism. I don't want to butcher the person's name who wrote it, but it is on a blog called May. It's spelled Maemai. But we'll also put a link in the description.
We will put a link. We will put a link. Don't even worry about it.
But this person brilliantly summed up some of the points that we're talking about right now about the idea of just like strictly European classical orchestra kind of being dead, that there's been actually widening our perspective of what is classical music, but they're also making the point of specifically anti-colonial orchestras that have arisen, that are that are kind of in response to colonization, but also kind of not, because they're using musical forms, local, and they say like local classical music in here, which I love, using those forms and kind of creating their own, I guess it wouldn't even be creating, it's, revitalizing, nurturing, cultivating like a system of classical music that is specific to where they're from. They talk about Africa and the Pan-African Orchestra in this article, but there's some other examples as well. So I one point that's in here that I want to bring up that I love, because I think it also came up in our conversation with Dr. Okoye, is not having this like colonial response to trying to solve the problem, but then having like a reactionary colonial response. So there's a good critique of our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, or rather saying that it's not going far enough, especially since it's often presenting solutions that are from the mind or imagination of the person who has been in power and is trying to maintain a certain power, or maybe has no knowledge of a whole different perspective of what music is, according to whatever indigenous peoples they're encountering. And I forgot where I was recently, but I was in a conversation, we were talking about even just the very word art, or the concept of art not necessarily being a thing to a lot of indigenous peoples, because it's just part of culture. Like it's not even this thing. It's not this thing that's separate from our lives. It's part of how we live our lives. It has
I love that.
Right? Like art is not just, it's not a thing we make. It's what we do. It's how we live. It's all of that. So
yeah, and it's like this quote that he has, Frankie Radin of the Indonesian National Orchestra, saying that music has ceased to be a communication tool, cultural interaction, and spiritual endeavor. And that's really, and I know that when I was a kid and I was making music in my room, or like when I was in college and I was like, depressed and playing my guitar, or I was like, jumping around on stage with my band, like faking a seizure. I was using music as a communication tool.
Absolutely.
I was trying to interact with my culture, with my loved ones, with my contemporaries, and it was a spiritual endeavor. When I was just like in my room alone, I was trying to contact, I used to always call it the universal heartbeat. Like like I'm trying to connect with that universal heartbeat, and I just feel like that's just like not a thing anymore. You know,
Or I feel like that's what people like. What was her name? Heather McDonald. See, my mind is purposely trying to not give it too much energy.
Yes.
But I mean, that's part of like what those arguments don't even address. It's just like, oh, the repertoire, oh, the representation. It's just like we're talking about a whole like cultural hegemony. We're talking about like people. Like I don't even know how to describe like how deep it is. Like when I think about it, like art is very much our culture. I was talking to again Rebecca yesterday, having another brilliant conversation, and we were talking about, you know, the redesign of the education programs and music out loud and stuff. And I don't know how we got here, but I was just like, I love when a music program and an art program can honor the ways that like we naturally already start art making, like when just growing up, especially like I can speak for Black people and what we do, but even just the basic banging out a beat on the lunchroom table, you're learning rhythms. Like you're actually practicing when people start getting that soul clap going or whatever, and you know everyone is riffing off of it. Like it just happens communally, part of our everyday life. It's not just in a classroom. I told her there was no children's music in our house growing up. There's no like children's music. We listen to the same whatever polyrhythmic thing that my parents are listening to. And like, I don't know. I feel like there's just like, there's not enough respect given to that. And people look at people of color and be like, oh, but you're not going into musical training, or you're not pushing your kids into musical training. You're not exposing them to classical music. And it's like, maybe I'm not, but Lil Man can rap a 16-bar verse on beat with flow, and you can't do that. So go back to studying your rhythms and your sight reading.
Yeah, I mean, I think the disconnect is that, you know, people like Miss Heather are sort of looking at music, looking at art as something that you do, something that you possess, something that gives you status. Whereas we're talking about, no, music is just who we are.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So, could we just have that conversation? Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Because I don't think she even, like, understands that.
No, I agree with you both.
So.
It is such a specific.
I don't think it's ever even occurred to her.
No, because I think she has this very specific rendering of what art is in her mind, and honestly, who can do it, and the sort of skill set that it takes to quote create art, right? Yeah. And you know, my husband and I frequently joke about the fact that Black people will make a song out of anything, like literally anything, and I just feel like there's...
like I'm making my green shake in the morning. I'm like avocado, tail of time for some cucumber. Let's go. Like no, but like for real.
and I feel like that is like one of my most favorite things about being Black. You know, like all of that, right? Yes. And that's the thing that I think we celebrate in the community that is not more broadly celebrated by the country, even though it's frequently co-opted and replicated, right? And that's like another part of this, right? Like I would have been more interested in Heather's article if there had been a paragraph or two about appropriation, right? And all of the things that sort of feed back into like what classical music is. You listen to like Dvorak, right? Like you hear that he was around Black people when he was writing. You can hear it. But that didn't make it into her article, right? Like none of this. And this is what is so bothersome to me about the broader context in which we work. And I think we get to work in a really nice place that is open to and eager for many of the ideas that we have, right? Maybe not every single one the world is ready for, but I feel like this is still like a place where we can generate these ideas and talk about them and figure out how to move. But I feel like if you step too far out into the classical music world, there is so much of that. You know, this blog article she wrote, and I'm not even going to name another one or two that I do read on occasion because I feel like I want to know what the people on the outside are saying. There are people who spend so much energy to being against the idea that we're trying to make this space welcoming to other people, right? And it's not limited to classical music, because you certainly see it in theater and dance. And if I read those blogs, probably film and video games. I absolutely love comic books. Have thousands of them in my house. I think 20,000 is the actual number that we have. It sounds like an obsession, but it's a collection.
You need to have a conversation with my sister, because I think she has at least as many.
Well, then I do need to have a conversation with your sister. But that's another area, right, where comic books have been sort of completely owned by, like, you know, cisgender heterosexual white men forever. And they pretend like none of the rest of us read them, despite the fact that all these movies are making $1 billion, so clearly other people are interested. And that's another space, right, where they're just fighting against the idea. You know, 10, 12 years ago, Miles Morales, the, you know, Afro-Latino Spider-Man who came out, the kinds of things I was reading on the internet about a fictional 13-year-old character, and you know, and it's like, wow, what is wrong with you people?
Who hurt
Like,
you?
like, what is right? Who hurt you?
Or I remember when the Hunger Games movie came out and Amanda Stenberg was cast as Rue,
I remember that.
and everyone lost their minds until somebody pointed out she's black in the book.
To me, there was nothing confusing about it. I read the book. I understand and picture this little girl.
They wrote, this is a black little girl who is in the Hunger Games. And everybody just, I guess, glossed over the word black and lost their minds.
Well, not the first time. So,
no.
Yeah.
They thought she meant like olive toned skin. That's what they meant. She said dark. They're like, oh, like maybe they're like she's Italian or something. Like, and it's like
that is not the case.
No.
Well, speaking though of groups that are pushing back against
Let's do it.
all of this nonsense, all of those trolls and anti-colonial orchestras, very excited. We just wanted to shout out really quick the Gateways Music Festival Orchestra, because in April 2022 they are going to be the first all-black ensemble to play at Carnegie Hall.
Yes, but also like
The first.
Which, I mean, that's great. I mean, yes, but... yes. But yes.
yes. Y'all need to pull a Beyonce at Coachella though. I mean, I'm sure you already will in terms of the excellence, but I mean her little, you know, her little shade.
So we will make sure that we post a link in the show notes.
Yes.
If you are going to be in New York, I believe it's April 22nd. Or I don't know the exact date.
We'll post the date too.
We'll post the date. I know it's April 2022. I was going to say April 22nd, 2022, but I was like, I don't know which 22 is the right 22. But it is April 2022. I know that for sure. So go out there and get tickets, donate, check them out. And we'll put a little a link to some of their music as well. So.
I love Gateways. If I were in New York, well, if I were in New York, I wouldn't be leaving my apartment because of COVID. But I would be going to see this because I absolutely love them. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm hoping we're still doing the live streaming of things by the time this comes around.
Yeah, I hope that. I mean, I hope we're doing the live streaming, but that we can also leave our house.
That too. I'm just being realistic about whether or not I'm traveling to New York.
Yes.
So,
yes.
yeah. I hope you have your live performance with a packed house. And there's live streaming for people like me.
Well, this was a wonderful discussion.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm really glad we got to do that. And we got to have our own. Do I get to be Kid Fury? in this situation? I think you're Kid Fury. I think you're Kid
Thank
Fury.
you for joining us for this episode of The Read.
And with that little bit of appropriation, podcast appropriation, we will be right back with our Pure Black Joke. Yay! And we are back. And it's time for our favorite segment, and probably yours too. It's not us screaming about COVID. It's actually, it's actually us like being joyful. Yay! It's time for Pure Black Joy PB&J. Peanut butter jelly time.
Peanut butter.
We need like a little button. It's just like
I need like a little sound effect or something. Ooh, you know what I should have been like Heather McDonald. You go in the cannon. Anyway. Oh no, that's gonna get me in trouble, isn't it?
we can cut it.
Not literal, but wonderful, good thing. I just want to just really. Like, I'm not usually in the business of shouting out billionaire capitalists, but when it comes to my Barbadian Bayesian cousin, Miss Robin Rihanna Fenty, I just need to just congratulate you, ma'am, on your success. Yes. And look at this, she's not a billionaire off of that music. She is a billionaire off of creating makeup. That for all hues, for all shades, lingerie and underwear that fits all bodies, no matter what your shape, what your size is. And look at that, an inclusive brand that's worth $1 billion. Give me what? What? Huh? People want to be included.
Imagine that.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
People will spend their money on products that cater to them. Look at God.
According to Rihanna. Yes.
But congratulations to you, Rihanna.
Also,
you
congrats
are killing
to
it.
like all these like Caribbean people winning during like Emancipation Week.
Yes.
I know. Yes,
Yes.
happy Emancipation
Thank you.
Week.
Thank you.
We love to see it. Shout out to all y'all 50-11 Jamaicans in the Olympics who have won medals and who have just swept everything. I celebrate you. Yes.
It's my favorite time of every 4 years.
I'm sure.
The second week of the the Summer Olympics, yes. Is showing out. Yes. And congratulations to Simone Biles.
Yes.
Yes.
Come on, Simone.
What?
Shout out to Suni Lee.
Yes. Right from across the river.
Yes. Work,
yes,
girl.
from my neighborhood. East St. Paul represent.
And I love that like so much of almost every article I read talked about how much her community got her there and supported her and did the fundraisers and everything she needed for. Yes, we love to see it.
Miss Lee, when you get home, if you are free on Wednesday afternoons,
girl, let's have everybody on this podcast. We are in the middle of a pancetta. We cannot have everybody in this room. We're not 6 feet. We need 6 feet of distance.
Secretly, like also a musician or just like an opera stan. Like, what if? I'm just saying. We don't know until we ask.
We won't know.
We won't know. That's true. But I also just really quick, just want to shout out Simone Biles because all of these people are talking about, these spoiled millennials. They just want to just be lazy and da-da-da-da-da. She doesn't have the mental toughness.
Thank you.
Excuse me. The fact that she, without reservation, without apology, in front of the entire world, prioritized her mental health, I can't even do that when I don't want to go out to dinner with someone. So I just feel like that was just so amazing. And then for her to, to overcome, get that bronze medal. You go, girl.
We love you, Simone.
Yes. And like, I feel like is her mental health, yes, but also like bodily health. And people don't talk about that in terms of the Olympics because their idea is just like, well, they just go, and they push their body to the limit, right? That's what you're supposed to do, right? Like, you're supposed to just perform and push no matter what. And she was just like, well, oh, okay, well, no, because actually I would like to be here and continue to have full use of this fantastic athletic body that I was gifted with. Like, so if you want to see me continue to do that, like, yeah. Then I am taking this break. I just am, period. I was like, yes.
And maybe this is inconvenient for you, but I won the world championships with a broken toe.
She's still the greatest of all time.
I have 6 Olympic medals. I am a outspoken sexual assault survivor, and y'all want me to out here and literally do flips for the organization that did not protect me
and literally almost break my neck. Like, there have been gymnasts who tried to go through the same thing that she calls it the twisties, apparently, when like your mind and your body are not in sync. Like, I read some things about what happened to gymnasts who tried to just like
push through all of
through. It
absolutely not.
Good.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Yeah, no.
And that's why Simone Biles is like such a great role model.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I just absolutely adore her, and I still love you, Gabby Douglas. Like, I mean, like,
you too, girl.
I mean, I feel like I also just have to shout her out because I'm a huge Gabby Douglas fan. Like, I really love seeing these young women out here, like, doing this kind of beautiful work and being role models. Because I think, when I think about Simone and Suni Lee and the generation of kids who are going to grow up seeing them on their box of Wheaties and knowing what's possible, makes me super happy. It really, really does.
And speaking of the next generation, we were on vacation when this happened, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But can we please talk about Zayla Avant-Garde?
Yes! Oh my gosh! Who's just also casually a basketball prodigy.
Guinness Book of World Records. Like, excuse me? And the coolest name ever.
The best surname of anybody I've ever met in my life.
Like, is her first name pronounced Zayla or Zayla?
I don't know. I might have butchered that.
Either way, it sounds real cool.
Yeah, it really does.
Zayla or Zayla.
If I did not say that
either
correctly,
way.
I apologize, and I probably should have researched that before I said anything. I'll just call it Miss Avant-Garde.
I may have also unnecessarily corrected you. I've heard people say it both ways, but either way, your parents did that. When
They sure did.
They sure did.
So shout out to her. She's amazing.
And I'm sure it will do incredible things.
Absolutely.
And has automatic entry into whatever school institution she ever wants to enter. So
Ever.
You go, girl.
And
I'd like to see what you do.
all these little black children out here, I can spell words. What you want me to spell? Yes. Well, this has been a joy.
Yes, it is.
I do hope we get to do it again. Oh my god, I have to laugh so I don't start crying. But thank you all for joining us. And as usual, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That would really help us out. 5 stars. Please. And pause. And of course, share it with your friends. And, we're just going to keep having fun and being black and talking mess. So yeah, do all the things. And we'll be back in 2 weeks for
Yeah.
another fun show.
Raven Saunders, call me.
Bye, bye, bye. All right, see you soon. Bye.
Bye.